Go.
Hello, thank you for joining us. I'm Amanda Couch from Oklahoma, and I will be the introducer for our group as a whole and the research illustrator for both sides of the debate tonight. Our debate will be held in an informal debate style to allow for a more relaxed feel. We will be discussing whether the use of punishment-based interventions is ethical and or appropriate to be used in the field of applied behavior analysis. Our introducer for the pro-punishment-based intervention side will be Joy Thompson from Indiana. Jordan Ham from Kentucky will be sharing research to support punishment-based interventions and providing an overall summary. After that, we'll be hearing from Christina Hunley from California, and she'll be introducing the opposing side. Alexa Radford will share the opposing side and provide an overall summary. Lastly, we'll hear from Amanda Geiger from Virginia, and she will be providing a detailed response to questions that have come in. Next, we'll hear from Joy for the punishment introduction, pro-punishment introduction.
As Amanda said, I'm going to be talking about the pros of using punishment with children during ABA. Research shows that using the punishment procedures can decrease negative behaviors that impact the functioning of their daily lives. There's two types. There's positive and negative punishment, and some common forms that you might see in a clinic or a home setting would be response cost, reprimand, and then the two types of overcorrection. Another type is shock therapy, but we don't really see that anymore. The two types of overcorrection are restitutional and positive practice. I'm just going to give an example in case you guys don't know. Restitutional is where the individual needs to restore the environment back to its original state. So if you have a client who maybe like throws a tub of toys, they're going to have to pick that tub up, and they can either that gets dumped out again and they pick it up again, or they clean the whole room. The other one would be the positive practice, which is practicing doing it right. So if you have a client who elopes and they run away from you, they would have to practice coming back and walking as many times as the BCBA sees fit to do that. There's also simple things like reprimand and response costs, which could just be saying, no, don't do that, or taking away a reinforcer if the client's being inappropriate. There, of course, are ethics involved anytime a punishment intervention is being looked at. The Ethics Code 2.09, Treatment Intervention of Efficacy, talks about making sure the treatment is going to be effective and scientific based. And the Ethics Code 4.08, Considerations Regarding Punishment Procedures, talks about making sure you use reinforcement with the punishment and just making sure that all the positive reinforcement interventions have been tried first. To kind of go off the scientific based, here's some more examples of why punishment is okay to use. Simpson and Swenson both use the two types of overcorrection for their clients. The first participant's negative behavior was rumination. So this was defined as vomiting of food into or from their oral cavity, and they used the restitutional overcorrection. So every time the client did this, they said no, swallow it, and made the participant swallow his puke, and then they squirted lemon juice into his mouth, and then they cleaned his face. So they were like restoring his mouth back to its original environment, I guess. And then they also used overcorrection on their other for his repetitive vocalization, which is like if you don't work in a clinic or with the kids right now, it would be stemming, like, or scripting, just words that don't manipulate the environment. So when the client would do this, they would ask them 4 questions, and make them repeat this for 2.5 minutes. Both the participants' behavior significantly decreased after they did these. There's also another study about response cost, and this was to reduce packing, which is defined as any amount of food in a participant's mouth bigger than a grain of rice. And so they would let the client watch a video, and if he started to do the packing, then they took the video away, which that also led to a decrease in the amount of that. So using punishment is not like this scary shock treatment people think, and it's just like everyday things that happen in a person's life. And now Christina is going to talk about the cons of punishment.
So the cons of punishment, there's scarce research on negative effects of punishment. However, previous research shows some punishing treatments were unethical. For example, the Lovis using shock treatment or shock punishment. There is research saying like shouting and shaking child deemed to be ineffective and unethical. Newer research does show that ethical punishing procedures are being used, and like shock punishment and shaking and shouting is no longer used. However, it has been found that punishment is intrusive. Client may show higher rates of aggression in response to the punishment interventions. Procedures may model inappropriate behavior to the client instead of functional appropriate behavior. Possibility of creating contingency of negative reinforcement. For an example, a student put in timeout, but the behavior increases rather than decreases because it reinforces what they want, which is escape in that example. Emotional effects could be seen according to the Axelrod study. Emotional effects following punishment, long-term emotional effects following non-contingent punishment, such as electric shock. It may also elicit aggression, just like the shock therapy example. If you shock somebody, they're going to respond with aggression. So it also has seen for a failure to generalize. It may generalize as good as reinforcement, so why not just use reinforcement rather than punishment procedures? It's more functional, it's more positive. It could also, punishment procedures can also have a disruption to social relationships with the client and the therapist, for example. Higher rate of escaping situation that punishment is employed leads to termination of social relationship. One individual employs punishing procedure equals, it could ruin the relationship potentially. This is considered the most serious side effect of punishment procedures. Punishment can also violate ethic codes 4.08, which is aversive procedures must be used with increased training. Must be used as last effort. It still has intrusive effects. 4.09, least restrictive procedures first before punishing procedures, and punishing procedures are pretty restrictive. 4.10, which is avoiding harmful reinforcers. Punishing procedures may unintentionally reinforce other behaviors. Now I'm going to transition to Jordan for pro-punishment summary and research.
Thanks, Christina. So to build upon what Joy was discussing earlier, there is extensive research in the field of ABA that supports the use of punishment procedures in ABA interventions. As Joy mentioned, punishment procedures are used to decrease the future rates of challenging behaviors. And in an article by Byerly and Billingsley, we can clearly see that the evidence in the effectiveness of using punishment procedures to reduce the likelihood of future occurrences of challenging behaviors. In this article, the researchers implemented overcorrection procedures as an intervention to decrease stereotypic manipulations of toys. If you look at figure 1 in this article, you can see that following the introduction of the overcorrection procedures, the stereotypic manipulations of toys was decreased immediately and significantly. The low rates were also maintained throughout the intervention. And many of those who are against the use of punishment procedures in ABA would try to lead you to doubt the effectiveness of the punishment procedures as an intervention. However, in a more recent study conducted by Jowett, Hurst, Dozier, and Payne, the findings suggest that punishment was equally as effective as differential reinforcement. In this study, the authors compared the number of tokens earned in a token economy system using differential reinforcement versus one using response costs. In this study, the results showed that not only did the participants earn more tokens in the response cost condition, but the participants actually preferred the response cost condition over that of differential reinforcement. And this is in figure 1 of this study as well. Many will also argue that teaching functional communication as an alternative to using punishment procedures to decrease challenging behaviors. However, in a study by Hanley et al., the researchers actually found that FCT plus punishment was more effective than FCT alone. You can see this in figure 2 of this article. Both of the articles by Jowett et al. And Hanley et al. Show that punishment is equally, if not more effective than other procedures for many situations. And for my last point, I'd like to reference the BCBA Guideline 4.08 Section C, which states that punishment procedures can ethically be used before reinforcement-based procedures if the severity or dangerousness of the behavior necessitates immediate use of adversive procedures. This supports my last point, which is that there are often scenarios in which it would be considered more unethical to not use punishment than to use punishment procedures. Take for an example,
Hey guys,
in high rate.
Hold on, sorry. My daughter's completely losing it. I have to go get her really quick, and we have to do this over. I'm so sorry. Hold on.
Is there any way to pause it?
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Do you want to keep going for time's sake and then remember where you left off to then fill her in when she gets back? Just because we're still, I mean, it could be give or take. Like, we're not going to get marked off because of time, right?
I mean, this is just a practice, isn't it?
Yeah, so everyone can just sort of do like a dry run through what they're going to say. Like, you can practice on your own for like better time control, but like if you're over or under 10 seconds, like in the grand scheme of things, up to 45 minutes.
Right.
Okay. And we'll know that when we're recording too.
Right. Okay, so do you want to keep going?
Yeah, I'll keep going.
Okay, cool.
Let me figure out where I was at. So for an example, an individual who engages in high rates or high intensity self-injurious behavior. In this scenario, it would be more unethical to let the individual continue to harm themselves rather than to immediately intervene without first trying a reinforcement-based procedure. Procedures such as response blocking, which are often regarded as much more acceptable punishment procedures, can be used immediately to prevent the individual from being able to engage in self-injury while still remaining within the ethical confines of the BACV Code of Ethics. So as you can see from the presentation of the research findings, the punishment-based procedures, when used appropriately, can be effective and ethical procedures for reducing the future likelihood of a variety of challenging behaviors. And I'll now turn it over to Amanda for further explanation of the visuals used to support the research for the pro side.
So here on the screen, you see a graph presented in Hanley and the other authors of this study. And we can see here that when functional communication training is combined with punishment procedures, Betty, the client, shows a greater reduction in problematic and aggressive behaviors. Another study that was addressed by Jordan was in her study. We can see that the results shown that when used with response cost was preferred by more clients over differential reinforcement. And we can see from table 1 that when clients had a choice between two interventions, between the intervention that the net tokens yielded, they were higher with response cost, as you can see with response cost right here. This was table 1 and figure 1. This goes along with what I had just shared previously, just showing the different levels of differential reinforcement. And then lastly, the findings from Byerly and Billingsley suggests that the overcorrection procedures were highly effective in decelerating stereotypical objective manipulations, and we can see that here. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over now to Alexa.
Thank you. Okay, so punishment is defined as the addition or removal of a stimulus that can decrease the probability that the behavior will be happening again in the future. So according to Risley, an article that he wrote says that many undesirable effects can come from punishment procedures. So using this aversive stimuli in order to decrease the behavior has been found to elicit aggressive behaviors and escape behaviors. So if you're introducing this stimuli that the child obviously will find aversive, they're going to do what they can to escape the situation or become aggressive in order to, again, escape the situation. So these procedures tend not to be favored. Aversive stimuli can also suppress other behaviors that were desired to be maintained. So for example, if you've taught an individual to nicely sit at the table and do tokens, and they do this well, and now a behavior that you would like to address is them staying in the chair, and you start to take a token away every time you see them out of their seat, this has a potential to cause the client to suppress the ability to work at the table, which they had previously mastered. So using this aversive stimuli of taking away this token has then taken away the ability to sit at the table, which counteracts the results of using the punishment procedure. So continuing on the same example, is it worth losing the ability to work for tokens in order to decrease this behavior? So using the punishment procedure to decrease the behavior of coming out of the chair doesn't really seem to be worth losing the ability to work altogether. So some emotional effects can also be harmful to the client and to the therapist that's working with this client. You tend to lose some stimulus control. Without stimulus control, you can't really run a session at all. Stimulus control is really what we provide, like how we provide services, being able to get your client to respond correctly in different situations. Using punishment procedures will allow them to see you as aversive too, and they will no longer perform for you as well. So then going along the ethical codes, code 4.08 says that aversive procedures require more training. Personal experience as well as many articles that I've reviewed say that training and maintaining workers in a center is very hard to do. Turnover is really high, and so spending all this time training these employees how to deliver these punishment procedures may not be worth the time that they're going to actually stay at the center when you could just use reinforcement and still get the same results. Code 4.09 also says to use the least restrictive method, which would in turn be using reinforcement, which yields the same results as using punishment procedures. So again, why not just use the reinforcement? So now I'll switch back to Amanda for a visual.
The visual that I'm going to share with you is from the article of Capriotti and colleagues. They share that there are other effective treatments that can be used. The graph to the left compares differential reinforcement and response cost punishments to other options, and you can see that both had very similar effects on reducing tics. So now I'll turn it over to Joy.
Okay, now we're going to ask Amanda some questions. The first question is, lack of training is a potential issue for those who perform punishment procedures. Are there any strategies or methods that can help improve training for administrating punishment procedures and or decrease the need for these procedures?
Recent litigation does permit the use of punishment procedures when necessary. Under the appropriate conditions specified, database support is legally required to implement an alternative behavior modification. The critical element for administrators and practitioners is to conform to a standard of certain regulations, such as operating according to the least restrictive methods that have a reasonable probability of success. Guidelines are employed due to the unpredictable nature of punishment intervention techniques, and the policy is a declaration for protection. Lack of training is a potential issue for those who perform punishment procedures. The creation of an interdisciplinary team is suggested to serve the program's planned function. Instructors should provide regular demonstration of competency and accuracy within the punishment procedure. The benefits are evaluated by an objectively removed group of peer professionals to monitor the ongoing results of experimentation. Parameters. Clinical application of behavioral science involves consent, study, planning, and ongoing assessment to ensure every individual's rights are respected.
Another question is, the use of punishment procedures vary from setting to setting. Is it ethical to use this as a way to address behavior if it is not something that can be used across various settings? And what happens if a child has a punishment procedure implemented in one setting but not in another setting?
The use of punishment procedures is often variable from setting to setting. It's not ethical to use punishment procedures to address behavior if the same treatment is not used across all settings. Discriminative factors influence the effectiveness of punishment on response suppression. A punishing stimulus given any type of intermittent reinforcement from one environment is less likely to be effective. Generalize the same expectations consistently or be sustained over time. Efficacy of punishment is also influenced by the reliability of the classically conditioned consequence. Personal experience related to this topic includes the ethical treatment within punishment procedures, individualization of selecting a client for a punishment procedure, ongoing assessment and ongoing training for all staff involved with the student's case.
That sums up our debate tonight. I hope that you found this to be informational and helpful in making your decision on whether you are pro or against punishment-based interventions in the field of ABA. Thank you.
That was good.
How long was it?
I have no idea because we can't end the.
Yeah.
I don't know what time we started either.
It has to be how long?
Like 30 minutes. I think it was like about 25.
Okay.
Because we got on 23 minutes ago. So.
And we started it right on time, or that was that?
So it might even be like 20 minutes.
But we also
slow down, and I think we're all kind of nervous. I know I am. Keep stumbling over freaking words.
No, I agree. I think it's really fast. So, it's good to practice. So that's good. And hopefully we can all get like 45 or 30 minutes, like where we can do it. And we don't have to mess around with like recording. We know how to record it.
Yeah. So are we wanting to record this tonight, or are we thinking just be done with it tonight, or try to meet
due again? What's the date?
We have to turn it in by next Sunday.
Next Sunday, the 20, what is it? The 25th.
Yeah, but remember it's holiday this week.
Yeah, I'll be out of town Wednesday through Saturday.
Yeah, me too. What about if we did tomorrow evening around like?
That's what I was wondering. If we
whatever
could do
time works for everyone tomorrow.
Other groups at 7:30 tomorrow Eastern.
My only thing is I don't have internet right now, so I'm at a hotel.
Would you have access to internet tomorrow, like later?
I can see if they'll let me come back up here again.
Okay. Or I bet like if you know any like coffee shops or something that offer internet, like pretty much every.
I went to Panera first, but it was so busy in there. I was like, this is not going to work.
Okay. Hi, guys. Sorry. Okay. Okay.
So we finished the dry run. Like
I was listening. I'm in the other room listening. I had to feed my little drama queen.
Oh, she's starving, Mama.
Yeah, sorry. I was like, I have to. I was like, I can't. Like, I was like getting distracted and everything. So the only thing about doing it tomorrow night is it would be like 6:30 my time, which is like putting her down to bed, and we might run into the same problem. So do you guys just want to get it done tonight? Do it one more time?
Yes.
That's fine with me.
I mean, I'd rather do that.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna
let me hurry and go tell this lady that's here to study with, like, in the room that she can come in here because she's been staying out.
Okay.
I'm in a hotel because my internet isn't working.
Oh, I was gonna say, I was like, your house is very nice.
Look, isn't it beautiful? This is called their library. I was like,
I was like, wow, I'm impressed. Okay, I'm gonna give me like 5 minutes and then I'll be good with this one.
5 minutes and I'll let her know she can come in here.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Bye, guys.
Wait. Oh, yeah, to redo it, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll send in like 5 minutes.
Okay, thanks. Bye.